Zvezda with a big win over Sheshka. Lots of changes in EuroLeague, including a few big debuts, and it's do or die time for some clubs, all on Sweet 16. Tune in.
Hello and welcome to Sweet 16, an open look on EuroLeague basketball. As always, I'm Moshe from Team Scout, and with me, my great co-hosts, both Emmett and Aris. Guys, Happy New Year!
Happy New Year from Dublin here, BIE HQ. Slightly clearer than usual, only slightly.
And Happy New Year from Athens, Greece, where we had snow in New Year's Eve, but it's already melted.
Well, we're going to have a great show, obviously. We're looking back at the games of the last round of 2016. Olympiacos with a crucial win over Fenerbahce. As we said in the intro, Zvezda really impressive, continuing their amazing home streak when it comes to shutting down opponents against CSKA Moscow. Keith Langford was the star of the show. We're going to look back at what he did, and generally about a few of the other performances like Quincy Miller, Zizic, how they got on. Then we're going to look ahead to see what teams need to make what changes now that we're reaching that point of the season where it's do or die for the playoffs. Speaking of do or die, we're going to look at that crucial game coming up for Maccabi against Darüşşafaka. Those, and of course CSKA against Real Madrid in Madrid. Gonna be a cracker. We're going to look ahead to that. But first off, let's get down to it. Let's go to the 4-minute warning. 4 minutes to get through all the action that just happened in EuroLeague. It's the 4-minute warning. And as ever, the 4-minute warning isn't quite 4 minutes, but, you know, it's that time of season where there's too much to talk about, folks. So maybe let's call it the 4x4 minute warning in this case.
Okay, so guys, the first game that we're going to go through is obviously the game that we've decided to call the game of the week last week. That was Olympiacos hosting SF Fenerbahce. As Ari said, it's going to be a very interesting night there, especially for Coach Obradovic. Aris, you know, what was your intake on that game? It was, a great game. Olympiacos were up by 21. It ended up a bit much more closer than that. How did you feel that game?
It was a game of improvement for Olympiacos, and also a game that ratified the fact that the Reds are Final Four contenders. This is the main issue in Piraeus this season. They tried by setting the bar a little bit lower than usual, saying that we should get to the playoffs and then everything should be open, and nobody spoke directly about the Final Four. But after beating Fenerbahce, even though Fenerbahce has to say that Bogdan Bogdanovic was not present in the game, Olympiacos can really believe that they can do some serious damage. And Olympiacos was also playing without Printezis, and Vasilis Panoulis was injured during the game. He kept on playing, but Olympiacos is proving that they have much bigger weapons and much more options that most of people are giving credit to them. Of course, Spanoulis and Printezis are the main pillars of the team, but on the other hand, you have guys like Lojeski and like Green, and of course one player that nobody expected to be at such level in such a short time, Kem Birch, who is simply amazing. The way that Birch adapted his game to the needs of Olympiacos and to the EuroLeague needs, it's something, I won't say unique, but something very rare. You rarely see a player coming off a smaller, a lower level of basketball, like a mid-level team in BCL, and be ready to take on a starring role in a EuroLeague contender. Add to that the fact that Patrick Young is finally a little bit more like himself. He's healthy since the start of the season, but he needed some time in order to get his rhythm back, and you have a team which has a full roster and many options. I believe that was the key that made all the difference for Olympiacos. You see guys like Ioannis Papapetrou maturing and being ready to do something more. You see guys who are playing third string like Dimitris Agravanis being ready to take the next step. You see everyone taking a step up, and the need that they have to prove something, the need to beat a big opponent, and also the fact that the game was a sold out created an amazing environment for Olympiacos to thrive.
And I just want to throw a few words in on Kem Birch. You know, you touching it there, Aris. Like, I know Rob Scott and EuroLeague Adventure's been hot on him, but like that was like one voice in the corner, and like Rob's a well listened to voice, and we should have all listened to him probably a bit earlier, because like you were saying, the step up Birch has made, like it doesn't happen very often where a guy can step up to that level from where he's come from and just impress. Like defensively, he's really just shown what he can deliver, and again, it's the role and understanding what he needs to do for Oli. Like that's just some special stuff. Obviously not as great a game from the other Greek side. Moshe, I think we saw a whole lot of Langford in that game for Kazan.
Yes, I agree. Keith Langford is probably, I think, the most dominant shooting guard right now within the competition. It's simply Keith Langford being Keith Langford. He was obviously one of the greatest scorers in the EuroLeague, and whenever he takes control over the game, he usually does whatever he wants. We saw him sink the game-winning 3 versus Ravenna Zvezda. We see him, pretty much carrying Onyx on his shoulders, like pretty much during a lot of games. But I think that you might agree that, Queen Column also had a great game. I mean, it wasn't just Keith. Obviously, he had a great performance, but it was also, there's the trio of Column, Langford, and Artyom Parakhosky.
Yeah, like Parhosky and Cologne have really stepped up in this. We did really step up in this game. With Cologne, we expect him to be like creator first this year. Like we knew he could score, but we didn't know if he was going to be asked to do it as much as he has been. He has been, and the important part is he's been able to. Like he was, far more of a shooter in that game than a creator, whereas normally Chemo is Mr. Dish and Dive, and he's very good at that. But like they needed a different role out of him against Panathinaikos. They needed to be more of a take on, Kalatas, take on whoever's against him and go for the shot. And it worked, which was quite refreshing. Like Aris, like you look at sort of that game for Panathinaikos, where do you think it went wrong for them? Because it was an hour defeat, but it was still a defeat.
First of all, I believe that Onyx Kazan is now riding the wave of Keith Langford. Keith is playing excellently. He produced some of the best basketball of his career. Maybe he has a chip on his shoulder. And yes, EuroHoops shouldn't have put him at the number 66 of the top 100 list. He's proving it every night, every week, that he still got it. He's an elite scorer. He's probably one of the best scorers around in the game, not just in EuroLeague. And he's the guy who pushes everyone else in Onyx, and every time they break their ceiling. It's amazing what they can achieve. This time you have to add the name of Latavius Williams in the list, who in previous games didn't do that much, but he was ready to contribute.
The one game we have to as well really give a good bit of a read on, and I know Moshe really wants to talk about this one, but we've both gotten so many things wrong so often this year about Crvena Zvezda. I'm not sorry, Belgrade. You should be happy, because clearly I jinxed myself by underselling your side early this year. And I saw a stat go up there during the week. I haven't got it to hand, but at home, your defense is just comical. You're keeping most teams to 10 points below their scoring average. That's just crazy. So Belgrade fans, you should all be Zvezda. You should all be loving me here. I've clearly jinxed myself by saying you weren't going to be what I thought you were going to be. I thought it was going to be an easy win for Sheska on the road. And Moshe, I think you saw something similar.
Yeah, well, I did say it's going to be easy, so at least the game was easy. We just kind of missed the side that's going to make it easy. And Zvezda are playing to perfection. Need I remind you guys that they've downed Cheska that game, but they've taken Real Madrid by storm just the week before. And obviously, Madrid was not playing with I think with a full and healthy roster, but still. These are two great wins, and these are wins of the kind that can make the Zvezda way to the playoffs a bit easier. Now, I know I'm going to jump a bit from the subject, but take, for example, we just finished discussing the game of Kazan and Panathinaikos. It seems that Kazan is like pretty much in the same boat with these teams, with Žalgiris also, as well as Zvezda, when we're talking about the games they've won and lost. And though, get this, I know that we've said Parhosky, but the guy that really shined, as Ari said, was Latavius Williams. He was great that game. And I know that I'm kind of mixing up between the subjects, but it really was something that was noteworthy. And, Parhosky was had a big part with that team, but Latavius Williams had his share. Coming back to the Cheska Zvezda game, first of all, I think I want to say not just congratulations. I really want to say to the Zvezda fans, guys, you are amazing. you know what, the thing that you do within that arena, whether it's the Pioneer Arena or the Belgrade Arena, it reminds me, you know, of the good old days, as the Maccabi fans would like to refer to, as they were like back then in their arena. And it's something that whenever a team comes, it's like Emmett said, they're starting the game with minus 10 points for the very least. And taking CSKA down and beating them down to their knees, respecting the champs by just, you know, handling them on both ends of the court, it was remarkable. It was something that, you know what, man, hands down, I'm speechless, and that's a first. Aris, how enthused were you with that win of Zvezda against CSKA, and were you really surprised?
Of course I am surprised, but you can expect the unexpected in Belgrade. And we have also to note another thing. Zalgiris, Zvezda and Unix have one thing in common. They have very little pressure compared to the opponents that they have beaten. And on the other hand, teams like Real Madrid or CSKA Moscow have the luxury to be, let's say, relaxed in some games. I'm not saying that that was the case, and that's why Unix and Zvezda won. For Unix, it was a great comeback for them, and they kind of exposed one main weakness of Panathinaikos. I don't know if Gentile can patch this thing up, but when Kalathis is not on the court, Panathinaikos is vulnerable. Panathinaikos can't create without Kalathis on the court.
And so, we've been talking, because Moshe touched on it there, about sort of the mentality and the record side of things. And you can't really ignore sort of, you know, how certain teams at certain records actually look in better states than teams with same or even possibly worse records. Zvezda, probably the most dangerous looking 7-8 side out there. Kazan, looking pretty good shape at 6-9. Barcelona got to 7-8 there at the turn with their win over Darussafaka with a big second half showing at home. Great night for Ante Tomic from the floor, a rare one for him as well, that's got to be said. 8 of 8 from the field, going for twos. But they absolutely needed that win. They could not go into the second round 16 at 6-9. Mentally, it just would not have worked for them. They needed to be at 7-8. Moshe, like, how important was that W for the Blaugrana?
You know, it was very important. Though, you know, I talked to Aris during the week. We try to think it through, like, you know, how really done is that situation for the teams such as Maccabi and Milan. And you know what, as much as things looks bad, you know, they still have a shot. It's a long shot, but it's still there. For Barcelona specifically, was extremely important since they are the team who are injury plagued. It's something that's uncanny. It's something that I do not know if it has, like, if it's something that happened before, losing so many guys during the regular season. We're talking the first part of the regular season. They've managed to lose Stratos Peperoglu twice. They've managed to lose Claver. Paul Ribas got injured for the entire season. And the list goes on and on. Navarro just came back from an injury. So you're kind of asking yourself, and obviously, you know, Petri Koponen came off a very bad injury, life-threatening injury, actually, and we're happy to actually have him here back playing on the court. But you really have to ask yourself, are they really capable of going through like this, like for an entire season? You know, without all the guys, with obviously when they need to strengthen their team with probably a potential signing or two, is it something that can last to the long run for another 15 games which they would have to get at least 8 or 9 wins?
I believe that Barcelona has already managed to find solutions during their worst part of the season. They have signed Alex Renfro. They are still missing now Stratos Peperoglu, who is coming back in a month or so. And they also waiting for Laval to be back on the court, but they have finally found a rotation. I just saw the game against Zaragoza. They led even by 25 points. They have brought Vezenkov into the rotation with a meaningful role. They have a solid backup to Ante Tomic with Joe Dorsey, who is a completely different player, but he gives them the athleticism that it's needed against other front lines of EuroLeague. They have a solid backcourt with a trio of Renfro, Koponen, and also the great Iris Rice, who is also having an, I believe, underrated season so far because he emerged as the leader of the team. They are protecting Juan Carlos Navarro, who is not able to give as many minutes. They have the experience of Brad Oleson, who can play multiple positions. I don't see them needing something for real if Laval gets back soon. To be exact, I'm amazed at most EuroLeague roster because they are quite complete. Even the case of Maccabi Tel Aviv, it's a full roster. You can say that probably Mekel and Ohayon can't get the job done so far, but in theory, on paper, Maccabi has two first-rate point guards in their team. I don't see any team that it's really missing personnel. Maybe the top teams need a little more, need something, a little boost. I mentioned before Panathinaikos at the top of my mind. You can say that Darussafaka needed also something, and that's why they brought Zizic. So this move is kind of a risk because I don't know what Zizic is ready to contribute to a playoff contender who wants to do something more in EuroLeague. Of course, you can always add players, but even in the case of Olympiacos, with Dominic Waters being signed in order to replace Daniel Hackett, who is out for the season, I believe that the issue for Olympiacos is that they needed a player who was more ready, let's say, than Vasilis Stoliopoulos, the Greek guard who been used in order to get some minutes, get some of the load from the other players in the Greek league games. I don't see teams really having personnel issues, and maybe what Coach Itoudis of CSKA Moscow said should be done. The roster of the team should expand to 13 players per game, because those players are needed in such a schedule. And of course, I think that there is no team currently in EuroLeague that has less than 14 or 50 players signed on the roster.
If you had open look, one shot, would you swish it, wish it, or go fish it? 16 teams, gonna be sweet. Sweet 16.
The coach's playbook, where we look at the strategies that worked and that need to work in the coming weeks in EuroLeague.
A few minutes ago, we've talked about Barcelona-Dachka game that was played in the Balagrana. For me, one of the nicest things to see was Ante Zizic. You know, the guy is the younger brother of Andrea Zizic, who was playing for Olympiacos and ended up his EuroLeague career with Maccabi Tel Aviv, winning it all. But there were, for me anyways, a lot of question marks regarding would he be able to go from the Adriatic League and, you know, have really something to contribute to Darussafaka at that first game. And I think that in the 16 minutes that he played, he was outstanding. 6 rebounds, 2 blocked shots, and 4 points. And you saw that he had presence. I mean, that kid is big. I mean, I'm not talking just his length. You can see he's a bulked up, almost 7-footer guy. And that is something that is just too rare. He's the 23rd selection in the first round of the 2016 NBA draft. And, you know, we saw him dominate in the Adriatic League. And right now to see him having a few great moments with Dachka in their first game in the EuroLeague, that is, for me, outstanding. I liked what I saw. And I think that right now, where Dachka are probably lacking in their 5 position, I think we are expected to see a bit more Zizic play. Aris, I mean, would you agree? I mean, you watched the game. What did you think about Ante?
First of all, let me say you that Andrea is one of the most likable players of the all-time list in European basketball. So this kid gets a plus just by being his brother. Andrea also played for Barcelona and Panathinaikos, and he is liked by everyone, and this is quite rare for a guy who have played both in Panathinaikos and Olympiacos. Nobody in Greece has something bad to say about him. So let's get to his brother. Ante Zizic is quite a physical specimen. As you said, he has a real presence, and he can be a great addition to a team like Darussafaka. The problem is that the issue is that he was dominating at least some of the games in the Adriatic League. Tsibona was built all around him, and everyone was working for him. Now he has to work for others. He's a role player. I see him helping Darusafaka, but I don't know how this thing will end up with him openly being prepared for the NBA and with the team having huge goals and trying to get as high as they can. I hope that both sides will be satisfied in the end, but I think that maybe it will be better for him to stay in Cibona and work on his game. Now the situation is quite different. The plus for him is that he will have to work under Coach Blatt, and if someone can prepare you for the NBA right now in Europe, I don't think that there's anyone better than Blatt in doing this.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with you there at all, Lars, in terms of the preparation. The one question I must have is, it means, you know, he's going to be seen a lot more by NBA eyes now in a situation where a role, not obviously identical to what he'll have in the NBA, but a lot closer to what he'll have in the NBA than what he had at Cibona. He's going to be seen a lot more as a player who's a role player, who's supporting those around him rather than having the game built around him, which can obviously showcase him a lot more. Of course, that was Zizic making a big breakthrough. A player who we finally got to see this week, finally, in EuroLeague action, Moshe, was Quincy Miller. And we were talking off camera just a few minutes ago about Quincy. He's still playing like a guy who's come back from an injury, really, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that you would expect. I mean, no one expected for him to go 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 blocked shots or something that's even remotely close to that. I mean, you know, he was a bit hesitant. We kind of expected it. And the more playing time he's going to get, it looks like he's going to be okay, because his mentality throughout the entire rehabilitation process was that, you know, he's good enough. He's not going to let the injury slow him down. And right now, you know, there was this excitement in a way, not like a good excitement, not a bad excitement, simply the excitement of stepping up the court after a long absence, being 5.5, I think, months it was. And you know, it looked like he's going to need a bit more time for Maccabi. The bad thing about it is they will not register him immediately to the domestic league, which means that he's going to have to come back through the EuroLeague. So it's something that they have to take into consideration. And I know that Bagatskis would love to have finally a 4. Good news is they got Joe Alexander back, which is expected to be registered to the Dachka game again on Thursday, which we will discuss, I think, later. Aris, how did you enjoy, or you know, how did you see Miller's coming back to the court in the Fernando Buesa arena?
It was bumpy as expected, but as you said, and speaking about likable players after Zizic, I haven't met a person more positive than Quincy Miller. My first meeting with him was in Athens this September, my first face-to-face meeting, when he was still injured, but part of Maccabi roster in the Diamantidis tournament. He wasn't playing, he was trying to follow his rehabilitation program, and he was all laughs and joy and jokes and ready to meet anyone and talk with anyone and generally happy with life. I believe that this attitude is the best way that an athlete can help himself get back from a really serious injury. But he will need time. See what happened with Patrick Young. Patrick Young spent half the season trying to find his real self, and he's finally playing like he should. I believe that Miller will have also a similar path, and maybe he can find himself even through practices with the support of his teammates. Maybe his character is kind of different, maybe he sees all the positives, and that may help him mentally get through the injury faster than most people. But on the other hand, you can expect him to step right away on the court and be the guy that he was last season.
And speaking of players looking to find a way back, a very different type of finding their way back right now is Dion Thompson, who's trying to get back to the player he was when he helped Bayern win the German championship a few years ago and had a great season in EuroLeague himself. He's moved from Gala to Zvezda, and well, the questions we were having before this was, is it a good move, is it a bad move? Off camera I said, at the moment if Zvezda side Barda, Barkas and Ryan, I think Zvezda would do fine with them. But crucially for Thompson, it's because it's coach Radonjic he's going to. He's a guy who's shown what he can do with players, how he can build around them. If there's someone there who's going to bring us back to prime Dion Thompson, I think right now, given the mentality of Zvezda, given the sort of the culture in that club, and just given what Radonjic is doing, there's hardly a better person to land Moshe, really, is there?
Well, I'll start by saying that, looking at the past few years and what Zvezda has done, bringing players throughout, a few months into the season, it's something that worked for them. But this time it's a bit different because it's a longer first round. We're already with 15 games behind us. Thompson, I think he would desperately look for, get back into rhythm, which is something that, everyone was off rhythm with Galatasaray till now. And for me, the big thing is, team chemistry is something that's so delicate, and we're seeing how it's affecting Maccabi. And you can see the complete opposite with Zvezda. They have the perfect team chemistry. They're playing for each other. They love each other. And right now, throwing another guy into the mix, I know who's Dion Thompson. Everyone knows who he is and what he's going to bring. The question is, team chemistry-wise, is it the best move they could have made? I cannot say so for sure. It's something, like I said, something that only in test of time we would know exactly the ramifications of it. But, I'm not that happy for that move. And not because I don't think that Dion Thompson is a great player, simply for the fact that right now, Zvezda are looking great. They're coming off 2 big wins. And, right now they have an advantage of 2 wins, I think, or 3, over some teams in their fight, to their fight for the playoffs spot. So with that move, again, I do not know how good that is. Aris, what do you think?
What I think about Thompson is one word, consistency. He's a guy that he gets the job done. I don't want to, let's say, be soft on him, but I believe that the problem in Galatasaray is the environment. With everything happening, with players coming and leaving, with some of them being at odds with coach Ataman, maybe this was not the right environment for Thompson to be himself. It's not a surprise after all that in theory he's leaving one of the biggest clubs in Turkey in order to sign with Crvena Zvezda, which is a great club with a great tradition, but with very limited resources. On the other hand, we all know that Galatasaray also have financial issues, so we have to wait and see what exactly happened on the business side of the deal. But on the basketball side of the deal, in a healthy environment with in which everyone knows its role, in which anyone is ready to sacrifice himself for the team, I believe that Thompson will excel. When Thompson first came as an NCAA champion in Europe, he played for Ikaros in Greece and then for Union Olympia in Slovenia. He played in EuroLeague with Olympia and he had some spectacular games, having, if I remember correctly, Danny Green as a teammate. I'm not sure about it. Maybe my mind is playing trick right now. What I'm saying is that Dion Thompson has the personality of a guy that you want to be on your team, and now he's a respected veteran all around Europe, and he can only help Crvena Zvezda. I believe that his number will jump, and will jump immediately. I believe that the environment will make the difference for him, and the role will make a big difference for him. Imagine what will happen if Milko Bielica left Crvena Zvezda in order to help Galatasaray in the current moment. I believe that the opposite, the exact opposite will happen to Milko Bielica, and I also like him, so I hope he's continue to do great in Belgrade.
No, like I said, I agree. He's a great player, and I do think that he has something to contribute, like pretty much every team that he will step into. But again, my question is, after 15 games in the EuroLeague, where everyone knows his spot, don't you think it might take him too long to get into business, and that might hurt the team in the long run?
Not really, because there is a very specific system in Crvena Zvezda. And speaking about the consistency of Dion Thompson, you can't but speak also about the consistency of Coach Radonjic. When he was in the preseason at Crete in the tournament with Anadolu Efes and Olympiacos, he knew what he was getting into. He said that we know that in the new EuroLeague we will not have charter flights, we have to practice less, we have to maybe choose games sometimes, but this is all planned. I believe that Zvezda is taking 110% of the abilities of the team because the coach knows exactly what to ask from his players. And you can see it in every personal decision that they have made. They waited and waited and waited, and they finally landed Nate Walter. They needed a big man. They waited, and they finally got Dion Thompson. They got decent human beings who are also great basketball players, and they can mix just right in the Zvezda system. I believe that's the key. They have a very solid core of local talent, and every addition is very carefully planned. And that makes all the difference. It's quite the opposite of let's say Maccabi. Maccabi believes that if they get a lot of talent, somehow this talent will glue together and create a unit. This is not the case in basketball, and I believe that this is the main issue of Maccabi. On the other hand, you see a team like Zvezda who is looking specific players for specific needs, and they get right on the spot with very limited resources.
And so the last player we want to look at in this section, purely because he just had another one of those I'm going to take over and win this games with a lot of help this time, let's not forget, Keith Langford. And well, given Moshe, you saw plenty of him back in his Maccabi days, of course, like he's not really changed as a player. He just keeps doing what he does.
Exactly. That's the same player we saw in Maccabi back in, I think it was 2011-12 season. We've seen him play for Milan in the EuroLeague. We're seeing him play now for Kazan. He's obviously, more matured, but I do think that, my biggest concern for him, none of us is getting any younger. And for the players, obviously, it's much more important. My question is, he's been going through like a lot this year. So how much does he got left in the tank? I mean, I know that his contract is for this year with Kazan and also for the next season, but don't you think that the toll that this season might take from him would be just simply too much?
Yeah, I'd actually agree that's a big issue for him because he's obviously thinking about his next contract. You're totally right there. And he's putting up the numbers to definitely entice one. But if you're one of the smarter teams in EuroLeague, you're kind of looking at Langford's age, you're looking at the workload he's taking on with Kazan right now, and you're kind of wondering, is that a bit much? The one thing going heavily in his favour is the VTB situation for him. They can manage his minutes a bit more, so they can run him into the ground a lot more in EuroLeague than they do in VTB League, which can keep him somewhat fresh. Obviously, they still have to focus on making sure they get that second seed, get that second place, so to get back to EuroLeague next year, or possibly win the VTB League, because honestly, anyone other than Chess is going to win that, guys. But in all seriousness, like for Langford, yeah, there's an element of self-management. But he's never been a self-management guy. He just goes out, does what he does, and you know what you're getting with him. He probably is playing at the level. I don't think he's going to get a much bigger move than Kazan, realistically, for his next contract anyway. So for him, it's a case of, can he put in the next good year and a half and get them or someone of that level to take him on again is the realistic situation for him.
I believe that Langford is a unique case. And speaking about environment, he thrived in an environment that most will say it's hostile because of the cold in Kazan. Langford was also great for Maccabi, he was also great for Milan, but what he achieved in Unix Kazan is what makes him unique now. I don't think that it's only the lack of talent, it's the maturity and the need for him to be a real leader. So maybe, even if you can think about his age and all the workload and his body, which by the way we don't have any indication that he has any issues or he might be slowing down, on the contrary, I believe that it's a matter of maturity. He's a guy who paid his dues. He was in the spotlight. He was in two of the most historic clubs in Europe. He was a star. And something was always missing. Neither Maccabi or Milano believe that he can take them to the next level. And now he's doing it with Unix. I believe, yes, maybe the next contract will be his last chance to do something really big. And I believe that maybe this chance will come. I'm not sure who will bet on him, but we are in a transitional period. Diamantidis is out. Juan Carlos Navarro is not the guy who used to be. And also the NBA is waiting to get every big talent from Europe. So you never know what opening may end up need a guy like Langford.
Aris, that's a great point. I mean, like we said, let's try and jump forward like about a year and a half from now. You know what? I would like to have like even a guy like that coming off the bench for 16 solid minutes of pure offensive talent. I mean, he's, again, like we've mentioned at the beginning of the show, he's probably one of the most dominant, I think, shooting guards in the competition. I mean, he's one of the big 3 or 4. I mean, you have him, you have Decolo, and you have good luck, each and every one of them and what differs them from the rest. But he's obviously there, with the big names in his position.
Yeah, for sure. Like, he's playing at a level that would be like, all EuroLeague contention if it wasn't for the fan vote guaranteeing he hasn't got a hope, in all seriousness. But like, he's playing at that grade, and yeah, like Aris is saying, I don't think there's any reason to assume his body's going to wear down. I think we're just doing it based on what we expect for players that age. But the opportunity is going to be there from the year and a half. What he does then, that's going to be interesting.
Sweet 16, an open look on
EuroLeague basketball, covering 16 EuroLeague teams. Gonna be sweet. Sweet 16.
Okay, so now we're moving ahead to our games of the week. We're skipping the Scouts Notebook this week, not because we've taken forever to get through this show, that would just be lying. No, we're doing it because, frankly, round 16 is so crucial. It's almost like we have to read what's going to happen in round 17 from it. So we're going to put Scouts Notebook in the corner, because we think round 17 is going to need a lot more assessment, really, and it's going to be a longer section next week. So we're going to lead off with an absolute do-or-die game. It's the Black Bowl, Maccabi Tel Aviv versus Darushafa Kadosh. And, well, Moshe, what are your hopes?
Well, it's not a matter of hopes because we're just analyzing the games. I do think that right now Maccabi has a lot of problems. It's not just the team chemistry, it's also the confidence. I've just watched them. We saw a game in the State Cup quarterfinals of them being, one possession short of being eliminated by a second division team. And that is simply crazy. It's something that's uncanny. It's something it's hard to even try and understand, like the significance of what happened in that game. But I do think that, it's going to be there is a very interesting angle to that game because we've known that so far Maccabi had a record of 2 wins and 5 losses at home in the EuroLeague, and we do know that Dachka are a better away team. So just saying that, I mean, it gives a certain advantage to David Blatt, and I do know that, last time they were here, it was a preseason game, and the perimeter was just like, it was something big for both teams. Right now, Maccabi would have to control the rhythm from the beginning to the end. Their mistake was Darushafaka's backcourt was pretty much absent for the first half. But from the second half, when they took charge, it was done. It was the 18-point lead or 19-point lead that, just faded away as if it wasn't even there, for starters. And then, Scotty Wilbekin took his shots and, it was what it was. But come on, that's a good game. But the Greek derby? Come on, it's Panathinaikos coming to Seth. It's, again, the Calates in the game and Mike James trying to get into. Aris, come on, share with us your thoughts on that amazing game.
This is the first of many big Greek derbies that are coming up in January. Olympiacos and Panathinaikos have to face each other also for the Greek League and the Greek Cup. The Greek Cup game, which is a knockout game, will be also played at Olympiacos home court, the Peace and Friendship Stadium. You can also call it SEF by the Greek initials of the words. And there is also a league game at Oaka. Everyone believes that the biggest game is the one coming up this week for EuroLeague. Why, you ask? Because Olympiacos, if they get the win, they can be relaxed until May. Even though the cup game will decide the title, Olympiacos have also won at home for the Greek League, and with a win also at home in the EuroLeague, will get a 2 wins advantage over Panathinaikos in the final statistics. That for Olympiacos is huge, considering also the fact that Olympiacos is currently tied for second in the standings. They will get what they really want, the advantage over Panathinaikos, and they can concentrate either in their next EuroLeague opponents or even relax a little bit in the Greek League. For Panathinaikos, this is a real test. This is the game, the first game of Coach Pasquale, of Gentile, and of Mike James against Olympiacos. Panathinaikos will be presented for the first time in its final form against the eternal rival. Yes, Olympiacos is missing Daniel Hackett, but Hackett is out for the season. Dominic Waters, who will be his replacement, is already with the team. And the only question is if Vasilis Spanoulis will be able to play. So we get drama, we get a big rivalry, and we get a game that it's really crucial at this point of the regular season. It can't get any better and any bigger. The game is already a sold out. A few hours ago it was announced. This is not a surprise, of course. Also, the game against Fenerbahce was sold out. And the point is that if Olympiacos, who is having Printezis, this is for sure, Printezis will play. If Olympiacos manage to get also this win, Panathinaikos should wait until the playoffs in order to get a big one. Even if they get on the road the win at the Greek Cup, in the big picture, Olympiacos will still have the advantage. So I believe that the pressure this time is on Olympiacos side. It's not on Panathinaikos side. Panathinaikos is playing on the road. It's a relatively new team, and they have to prove that they have more weapons than Kalathis. That's the main thing that Panathinaikos has to do. If they do that, they may get Olympiacos in trouble, not only in this game, but for the future. I believe that the blueprint for Olympiacos will be simple. Just take Kalathis out of the game. If they do that, the chances that they will have to prevail will be more than huge. And it will be very interesting to see it played out on the court.
Aris, I got a trick question. Actually, not just for you, but both of you guys. I mean, I guess that we would probably agree that Dachka has the edge in that game versus Maccabi. But here's the question, that's been bothering me like for quite some time. A Greek derby, would you rather see it as a best of 5 playoff series or in the Final Four as the semifinal or the finals?
This is a non-question for me, because I believe that every game has its own story, and if there is some games that you can wait and unexpected, this is the kind of games you speak about. We have seen it both. We have seen it as a playoff series in the Greek League, and we have seen it also as a knockout games in Final Fours for some times. Panathinaikos and Olympiacos have met 3 times in Final Four semi-finals, in 94, 95, and of course in 2009. So nothing is missing, and every time it's just great.
And I'm greedy. The only reason I want to see this in a Final Four, if it does happen in the postseason, is because I want to see Pau Baskonia again, best of 5 in the playoffs. That's it for me. I want to see Panathinaikos and Baskonia play in the playoffs against each other, because, even though it was a sweep last year, it was a pretty good series of 3 games to watch. And I expect it again, if they meet in the playoffs again, for it to be great again. So I'm pretty straightforward in that one, Moshe.
Before moving on to the last game, Aris mentioned the fact that, without Kalathis, it's a different Panathinaikos. I would like to see 2 different lineups with Bruce's James, with one, and Kalathis with obviously James, with Chris Singleton, and with all the other guys. It might do some other stuff, maybe try to may coach Sfairopoulos try and readjust to some aspects on Panathinaikos' game. But come on, the biggest game probably, I mean, besides the Greek derby, CSKA versus Madrid. I mean, CSKA losing a couple of games in a row, something that hasn't happened for quite some time. And now we see them, you know, struggling on the offensive end versus Zvezda for the entire game pretty much. And for the last 5 minutes with Fener at home. What's your intake on that game?
It's an interesting one for me for a few reasons. Not least what you're mentioning there, which is, of course, CSKA having their little bit of a wobble. Now, they were never going to run the table with, like, just 2 or 3 defeats in the year. They are at 3 right now, and I think if they had told them 12-3 after 15 games, they'd have said, yeah, grand, we'll take that. They might have hoped for 13-2, might have thought 14-1 was plausible, but, like, 12-3, if you told them the start of the season, I don't think Atudas would have been too upset. I think it's more the manner of the last 2 defeats. Not, well, of course, there was injury issues, but I think it was more they really just got it handed to them in Belgrade. But no one has gone to Belgrade yet without suffering. But what I'm really excited about this game is how Atudas game manages at Madrid, because he knows the side who's got a very good chance of seeing again in the Final Four. May not want to show everything this day, especially when you have to expect Real are going to give them a whole load of Luka Doncic. This is a real showpiece game for him. He's getting a lot of talk now. He's still a year away from eligibility for the draft, so there's no draft talk, just overall talk right now. It's a real type of marquee game. You've got 2 of the best sides in Europe playing each other. It's at the home floor for Real. Doncic is coming off an absolute blistering performance against Efes. Can he do it again? My concern, I've been saying repeatedly all year, is I don't want to see too much of Luka Doncic because I want him to actually not break his body. He's still literally growing. So it's going to be interesting. He's at the point of the season where you're going to see him get the load. He's going to be given the ball because you know he can do it. But at the same time, it's like, how does CSKA manage around that? Like, what do they do on the inside? Because I think on the inside, they aren't going to struggle as much against Madrid as they have elsewhere. You know, and so it's more, not a quality matchup, more a player matchup. I think just they're more suited to each other. I think it'll be very even on the inside. So for me, I'm giving Real a narrow win purely because CSKA are having their mid-season wobble, but I think it should be a good game either way.
May I add, it's a very crucial game. If Real Madrid manages to get the win, then they prove beyond any doubt that CSKA is vulnerable, and that doesn't translate only to the playoffs or to the Final Four. It will also have ramifications in the standings. CSKA will stay at 12 wins, and the second place will move. The second place team will move to just 1 win behind the Russians. That means that everything will be out of grabs, and CSKA will finally have some pressure in the upcoming games. Any defeat after that might be costly for them, and we should see how CSKA will react. CSKA remains the team to beat. They have, beyond any doubt, produced the best basketball so far in the league, and they have probably the best guard combination in the league. And I'm not talking about Milos Teodosic and Fernando De Colo only. I'm talking also about Aaron Jackson, who is the unsung hero of this trio. But if they lose the game at Madrid, then you can't predict how things will end up at the end of the regular season. And that will put a lot of pressure to them, because don't forget, this is a new format. I believe that CSKA is the only team that it's still living in the old format, because they have not lost too many games. All the other teams have already lost more games than they would in the old regular season, and they have lived with it. CSKA is the only team that it's still almost unbeaten.
And we're just going to finish this segment with a very quick shout out to that Zalgiris Zvezda game. The 2 teams I wildly narrated at the start of the season who have massively exceeded expectations. 2 great fan bases. Obviously, Zalgiris are at home, it'll be theirs who get to have the home court advantage in this one, but like major implications because they're both still playoff contenders. And if Zvezda win this one, they're back to 500, which is fantastic. Like I've said, they're the most dangerous 7-8 team going. They will easily look like the most dangerous 8 team going if they win this as well. I'm actually going to be watching from a strange venue because it's a road trip for BIE this week. I'm off to Cork to watch the Irish Cup semi-finals. So I'll be seated there courtside in the Neptune Arena in Cork with Zalgiris versus Zvezda on, and I'm waiting for the start of the Irish Cup semi-final. So interesting backdrop, but an interesting game to watch with that interesting backdrop. So looking forward to that one as well.
Oh, for sure. I mean, for me, it's a game to really watch, especially for all the reasons you've just mentioned. But you know, Zvezda are 7-8, Žalgiris are 6-9. That means that they only have 1 game difference between them. So one win, like for Žalgiris, could make them take a leap to a higher position within the table, within the standings. Aris, what's your intake on that game? I mean, what do you think is going to happen? We know that Zvezda are playing a very their game is very neat, very everyone knows exactly what to do and when. How do you think this game is going to go?
The same can be said about the Žalgiris team, which is a reflection on the court of the mind of Šarūnas Jasikevičius, and we have seen two great point guards in the making, Kevin Pangos and Leo Westerman, stepping up a little bit in the season. I believe that until the end of the season they will be even better. But I believe that Zvezda it's a much grittier team. And in a game where talent is almost equal, I believe that grit is what can make them go through in the end. I believe that they are a much more physical team, much more ready to play hard, to push their opponents in the defense, to make them work hard. I believe that Lithuanian basketball is a little bit more artistic than the Serbian school, which, with very few exceptions, it's a very, very physical school. And I will go with physicality in this game.
As Ari said, he's going with physicality. For me, it's a bit more complicated. We do know it's going to be a great match, great atmosphere at the Žalgiris Arena. We would love to see that game, and we will see this game, especially for us that every day is a EuroLeague day. And, that is... as we said, we're trying to not predict the outcome because last time we did, we kind of, scored only with the easy part of CSKA versus CSKA being hosted at Zvezda, and it was easy, simply for the wrong side, not for the wrong side, for the other team though. And on a happier note, that's it for this show, the 7th episode of Sweet 16, an open look on EuroLeague basketball. Well, you can always find me on I Am Team Scout at MosesB1 on Facebook, Team Scout, and teamscout.net. Emmett, where can they find you?
As always, of course, on ballineurope.com, where if you want to be bored with Irish coverage this week, check it out, lots of it, at BIE_basketball and facebook.com/ballineurope.
And you can check me out on EuroHoops and on Greek television, Cosmote TV, if you are a resident of Greek or a subscriber to our service.
And, well, that's it. So from Athens, Tel Aviv, and right here in Dublin, where it's a little colder than both Athens and Tel Aviv, although Athens got some snow this week, we didn't. See you next time, and of course, don't forget
to tune in our YouTube channel at EuroHoops TV in order to see this podcast in video format and also in the SoundCloud.
Sweet 16, an open look on
EuroLeague basketball. Covering 16 EuroLeague teams.
Gonna be sweet. Sweet 16.